Welcome everyone to Convicts and Cops, and thank you for joining us on another tale from the Aryan Brotherhood archives. Barry Byron Mills was his true name at birth. We all know that no one is born a criminal, but I will caution you in advance, for those who are faint of heart, that Barry would ultimately go on to inflict enormous pain and blaze a trail of violence throughout the California Department of Corrections and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. But before we begin, a quick word from our sponsor, the real Big Homie. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. This is the word from 1 Corinthians 15:33. According to an FBI file on the murder investigation of John Marsoff, Barry Mills was born on August 26, 1948, in Salem, Oregon. As a full-blown adult, his physical data is listed as follows. Height, 5 foot 10 and a half inches. Weight, about 180 pounds. Hair, brown. And eyes, blue. Other sources listed Barry's birthday as July 7th, 1948, and Windsor, California, as his place of birth. Some news articles reporting his death on July 8th, 2018, noted that he died a day after his birthday. I believe the FBI information to be correct. We found 1950 census records completed in April 1950, recording Barry and his family living in the city of Salem, in the county of Marion, in the state of Orange. Barry Mills started kicking up dust at a young age. On June 1st, 1964, the sheriff's office reported that 15-year-old Mills, a runaway, used a baseball bat to break nearly every window of a local Windsor home, causing several $100s of damage because he was angry. Anger, violence, and doing time would be part of Barry's life from this point on. On August 30th, 1967, Ventura police found Mills asleep in a stolen vehicle. Dozing off in a car was not a crime, but the fact that the vehicle was stolen from the Emporium parking lot was indeed a criminal offense. The owner had left the keys inside the car when she parked, making it easy pickings for Barry. He was held in the Ventura jail and then transferred to Sonoma County on the auto theft charge where the crime took place. He was convicted and sentenced to serve a jail term in the Sonoma County Honor Farm. On January 29, 1968, Sonoma County jail staff discovered 19-year-old Barry Mills and Buddy T. Coleman missing from the Sonoma County Honor Farm at 6:30 a.m. Sonoma County authorities reported Barry Mills' address as 1200 Shiloh Road in Windsor. On February 17, 1968, Sheriff's Deputy Joe Thibodeau pulled over a vehicle in Windsor to conduct a driver's license check. He arrested Barry Mills for the escape and two companions, Gary Walter Adams and Ray McInnes. Mills' partners were charged with aiding and abetting an escapee and sentenced to 30 and 60 days in county jail. On October 21st, 1968, at 3:30 p.m., teacher Geneva Alessio was leaving her classroom at the Santa Rosa Junior High School when she saw two boys in her brown station wagon pulling away from the curb. She stated she parked her car on King Street right outside of her classroom. The two boys would later be identified as Barry Mills and William Gary Hackworth. At 5:30 p.m., Mills and Hackworth entered the Stewart Point store. Mills pulled out a long-barreled .22 caliber revolver and instructed the store manager to lay down on the floor. They took $775 from the register. On the way out, Mills stepped over the manager, took his wallet and checkbook, and hit him over the head with the revolver, opening a gash requiring 7 stitches. At the trial, both the store manager and the teacher identified Mills, but the most damning evidence came from his crime partner, Hackworth, who had turned state's evidence and testified against Mills at the trial. Hackworth told the jury that Mills planned the robbery and further testified that Mills drove the stolen vehicle. Hackworth pled guilty to first-degree robbery, which normally carried a sentence of 5 years to life. But due to his cooperation versus Barry Mills, Judge Kenneth Iman used the discretion provided to judges by Penal Code 1202B to set the minimum sentence of any person under the age of 23 to 6 months in any conviction other than those requiring the death penalty. On January 22, 1970, after a 3-day trial, Mills was convicted of first-degree robbery and car theft. On February 19, 1970, he was sentenced to 5 years to life and was sent to the California Medical Facility in Vacaville for processing and assignment to a prison facility. Mr. Hackworth feared for his life, and his attorney attempted to have his prison sentence suspended and serve a year of jail time. But the prosecutor opposed this, and arrangements were made for Mr. Hackworth to skip Vacaville's reception center and head straight to the dual vocational institution. When Mills entered the California Department of Corrections in early 1970, the war between the Mexican Mafia and the Nuestra Familia was dormant. San Quentin administrator, specifically Sergeant Bill Hankins, was not allowing MM members to walk the general population main line at the Big Q. However, it was on between the black and the white convict population, led by the Black Guerrilla Family and Aryan Brotherhood. The BGF was on the warpath at this time due to the killing of 3 of their comrades in January of 1970 in Soledad's O-Wing during a confrontation between the Brand and the BGF. The gunrail officer had fired his rifle 4 times into the melee, killing 3 black convicts and wounding AB member Billy Buzzard Harris, causing him to lose a testicle. In December of 1971, a dispute between the Mexican Mafia and Nuestra Familia arose over a homosexual inmate, money earner. These types of inmates were referred to as punks or queens. Some could even reach the status of a wife or old lady if involved in an exclusive relationship. The owner of the punk owed drug money to both the Mexican Mafia and the Nuestra Familia. When he failed to pay his debt, Mexican Mafia member Manuel Buff Perez from Eastside Clover delivered a one-punch knockout and took possession of the punk. As property of La M, the punk would be sold as an inmate prostitute to generate revenue for La Clica. This development created an issue. Nuestra Familia felt they had a stake in the ownership of the punk because the former owner owed them money too. Colorado Arias met with a Nuestra Familia representative and they agreed to the M's ownership of the punk. But one newly made NF member would object to this agreement. Daniel Woodsy Reyes from Bakersfield refused to yield to the Mafia and disputed the issue. On April 4th, things came to a head when Emmett decided to settle the disagreement in a familiar fashion. Mexican Mafia members Philip Black Segura, Raymond Chavo Perez, and Manuel Chita Padilla attacked NF Familianos Woodsy Reyes and Joe Death Row Joe Gonzalez. The Familia retaliated on April 10th, 1972, when Frank Joker Mendoza stabbed mafioso Louis $1 Million Lou Valenzuela. The resumption of hostilities had begun. By this time, Barry Mills had acquired the handle the Baron and was now tipped up with the notorious Aryan Brotherhood. Like his AB brothers, Barry was not going to sit this one out on the sidelines. That wasn't his style. At this point, the Mexican Mafia had established a prison criminal alliance of convenience with the Aryan Brotherhood. The Black Guerrilla family and Nuestra Familia had done the same. In June of 1972, the Baron was housed at the dual vocational institution during the inception of the 1972 war between the Mexican Mafia and the Nuestra Familia, which only lasted for a period of 8 months. The AB notched the first murder when AB's Fred Mendron killed NF member Mosca Castillo at Palm Hall in April of 1972. So allow me to touch on some interconnected events that occurred during that time frame. On July 2nd, 1972, the Nuestra Familia tried moving on Mexican Mafia members Richard Baby Boy Resendez, an 18-year-old corn-fed youngster from Barrio 155th in Compton, and Corwin Elmore, a.k.a. Sloppy from Clanton 14, in 2 separate incidents. Fights broke out at 8:45 p.m. in the television viewing rooms in C and J wings. Baby Boy took the knife away from and killed NF member Gonzalo Lopez, a.k.a. Güero from San Jose, who was pronounced dead at San Joaquin General Hospital at 10:30 p.m. In the second incident that day, Sloppy survived the NF attack but required treatment for his wounds and was taken to San Joaquin General Hospital. On the following day, July 3rd, 1972, Nuestra Familia member Jesse Bozo Castro from Chula Vista was stabbed to death in the DVI dining room during dinner. DVI authorities reported that Bozo stumbled out of the dining room at about 6 p.m. with 3 knife wounds in his back and neck. He died a short time later. A 9-inch knife with a cloth-wrapped handle was recovered. No one was prosecuted for this murder, and it remains unsolved. Nevertheless, those convicts who were aware of who was who in the zoo credited this murder to the Baron, with an assist from MM member Martin Vargas, also known as Keto. Totally aware of the events that had just taken place between the NF and Mexican Mafia members, Baby Boy Resendez and Sloppy Elmore the previous night, they initiated the dance rather than allow the Familia to kick off hostilities. Getting off first was always the way to go when battling on the prison concrete. Finishing last was never an option if you wanted to survive. Barry was subsequently transferred to San Quentin. Barry Mills is pictured with fellow brand members Ruben, Butch, Papin, Marvin Moose Forbes, Danny Dog Rollinson, a member only identified as Bo, Mexican Mafia member Ruben Sapo Valdez, and an associate. As the years rolled by, the AB and BGF continued their heated conflict. At approximately 10:15 a.m. on Sunday, May 25, 1975, Aryan Brotherhood member Rick Turflinger from El Monte was exercising outside his cell on the 3rd tier of the maximum security San Quentin Adjustment Center when he was stabbed in the face and body by Black Guerrilla family member Garland Berry. Turflinger was reported in good condition in the prison hospital. This was the 14th stabbing of the year in San Quentin. Garland was not prosecuted and he paroled. In the prison gang world, it should be noted, these men are an unforgiving bunch, and they possess long memories. Remember the name, Garland Berry. We'll get back to him in a few minutes. In the 1960s and 70s, early prison politics produced 2 unholy alliances. The Mexican Mafia lined up with the Aryan Brotherhood. The Nuestra Familia did likewise with the Black Guerrilla family. None of these alliances of convenience were predicated on race, but instead revolved totally around having mutual enemies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as the saying goes. Barry Mills from the Brand and Martin Vargas from La M were 2 who were welded at the hip. Many other AB and MM members had similar relations. Little Mo Farrell and New York Crane, Cuate Grajeda and John Stinson, Blinky Griffin and Nico Velasquez. The list goes on in this alliance of convenience. After Barry was released on parole, he wanted to generate some rapid income and got down to the business of arranging illegal withdrawals from banks and other business establishments. In early June of 1976, after being released on parole, AB members Barry Mills, Daniel D.C. Kavanaugh, and Billy Buzzard Harris were out on Broadway. The Baron's Mexican Mafia crime partner was Martin Queto Vargas, his welded-at-the-hip crimey from prison, who had also paroled. In early June of 1976, Mills, D.C., and Queto traveled to Lake Havasu, Arizona, to visit a female friend of the Baron's named Debbie Kinney. Mrs. Kinney observed D.C. driving a 1968 Oldsmobile Cutlass. On the night of June 7, 1976, the Baron, D.C., Buzzard, and Queto met at Kearney Park. Buzzard, who had turned informant, testified for the prosecution that D.C. said they were going to rob the Queen. When Buzzard asked what he meant, D.C. said that they were going to rob Lloyd's Bank of London the following day. Buzzard declined to participate in the bank robbery. On June the 8th, 1976, the Baron and Queto entered the Mayfair branch of the Lloyd's Bank in Fresno. D.C. Kavanaugh waited in the getaway vehicle. All three were wearing masks. Queto showed a badge and a gun to the bank manager and forced him to the vault. Queto also directed the Baron to follow them and bring the bag in which they put the stolen $111,500 and exited the bank. They were seen departing in a 1968 Oldsmobile Cutlass. The crew then began purchasing goods with their ill-gotten gains. Queto bought a 1949 Packard for $2,500 the same day as the robbery. 2 days after the robbery, the Baron purchased a pickup camper in Las Vegas. Mrs. Kinney testified that the Baron came out to see her again after the bank robbery and showed her a briefcase containing a large amount of money wrapped in white bands. When she asked him where it came from, the Baron told her, "From a job I did. You'll have to read about it in the newspapers." The Baron went on to tell her that there was $35,000 in the briefcase, which represented a three-way split. On the same day the Baron bought the pickup camper in Vegas, D.C.'s wife paid $3,000 for a 1972 Pontiac. Shortly thereafter, D.C. and his wife tried crossing into Canada at Niagara Falls. $19,000 in cash and 2 firearms were found on the couple. The pair were arrested, and D.C. initially gave a fake name, but slipped up when he signed the booking slip with his real name. When confronted, D.C. said he was wanted by the feds for a $110,000 bank robbery in Fresno and told the deputy that he could make himself $19,000 richer by just taking the money. And on a side note, D.C.'s attorney convinced a federal judge that his client won the money playing craps in Vegas. The money was released to the defense attorney, which he kept as payment for his services. The final piece of evidence fell into place when an FBI agent was on his way to work and observed Queto's father driving the getaway vehicle. This, however, wasn't the only robbery that Queto participated in or convicted of. Queto was arrested on June 28, 1976, 20 days after the Lloyd's robbery. He and Victor Victorio Murillo, a fellow Mexican Mafia member, dressed themselves in security guard uniforms and attempted to rob the main branch of Bank of America in Fresno. Police were notified by employees who had become suspicious. When the police arrived, they managed to collect $186,000. Queto and Victorio were taken into custody without incident. In a follow-up investigation, it was learned that since April 1976, Queto had purchased approximately $2,000 worth of firearms from a local store. Included in these purchases were 2 9mm pistols, 2 semi-automatic rifles, 1 AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, and 1 .357 caliber Magnum revolver. On December 30th, 1976, Berry was convicted of bank robbery, and he asked for immediate sentencing. Berry received a 20-year federal sentence. He was housed at San Quentin awaiting transfer to the feds. I'm sure you all remember Garland Berry, the Black Guerrilla family member who stabbed brand member Rick Turflinger in the face and body on May 25, 1975. On Friday, April 22, 1977, Berry returned to San Quentin after violating his parole by participating in a mail fraud scheme. The prison grapevine immediately circulated the news of his arrival, and the AB got wind of this. On Monday, April 25, 1977, shortly before 8 a.m., Garland Berry, along with other newly arrived convicts, were crossing the yard on their way back to the North Block after breakfast. At this point, a guard observed two white convicts attack Garland Berry. The attackers wielded 11-inch knives and fatally stabbed Berry in the back, chest, face, and leg. The guard on the catwalk broke up the assault by firing a warning shot. Prison officials tentatively identified one of the suspect assailants as an Aryan Brotherhood member. One attacker was stabbed in the buttocks and taken to the prison hospital for treatment. Prison officials did not release the names to the press. A prison spokesman said that due to Berry's past as a troublemaker and his involvement in at least 2 assaults on white convicts during his prior term at San Quentin, he was asked upon his arrival if he expected any problems. True to the convict code, Garland Berry said he did not. Prison officials did not release the names of the suspects to the press, but Berry Mills was identified by prison officers in their investigation reports as the assailant who carried out this murder in retaliation for the Turflinger stabbing assault 2 years prior. Because there was no one crazy enough to testify against the brand, there was no prosecution. When Berry Mills first landed in the feds, he arrived at McNeil Island. He is pictured here with Mexican Mafia members Antonio Palacios, also known as Tony from Garrity, founding member Ruben Sanchez, aka Snuffy from Florencia, Donald Galaz, known as Tony from San Pedro, founding member Marcelo Baeza, aka Gabby or Pistolero from Florencia, and William Govea, aka Willie Bobo from Redondo. When the Bureau of Prisons decided to shut down McNeil Island, they began shipping convicts to other federal facilities. Berry was transferred to USP Atlanta. Near the end of April 1979, John Sherman Marsoff was transferred from USP Leavenworth to USP Atlanta. After Marsoff burned AB Federal Commissioner Thomas Silverstein, also known as Terrible Tom, in a heroin transaction, he requested to be transferred, fearing he would be killed. Terrible Tom sent word to the Baron in Atlanta that Marsoff was in the hat, a term that meant he was placed on a hit list, and requested he take care of him. On May 20th, 1979, Marsoff was killed in the men's room of a recreation shack at USP Atlanta. His death was caused by 16 stab wounds in the head, back, shoulder, and upper arm. One of the stab wounds in the head fractured his skull. The murder weapon was tossed into a toilet, and a second similar knife, unused in the killing, was tucked up under Marsoff's arm. Although numerous witnesses testified to having seen Berry Mills in the recreation shack area at the time of the killing, the only court eyewitness was Danny Holliday. The prosecution's key witness, Holliday, testified he had accompanied Mills to the recreation shack, armed with the second knife, for the sole purpose of robbing Marsoff. He said he was surprised by the murder and had taken no part in it. Included in the prosecution's evidence supporting their assertion that Mills was not only a member, but a leader of the brand, was a letter Mills had wrote from prison to another member that was intercepted by prison officials. In the letter, Mills refers to Aryan Brotherhood activities and his participation in other crimes. Much of this letter is in code. A portion of that letter was contained in the court documents. It reads as follows, quote, "All right, brother. How are you doing? As for me, all's the same old program, just in a different neighborhood. Presently, I'm doing a 2-year program here at Marion in the control unit. Yeah, they gave me a couple bogus 187s down in Atlanta. Nothing they've been able to take me to court on yet. I did just get through with an assault trial at Leavenworth. We fought it ourselves and ended up with a hung jury. So I'm now waiting to see if the U.S. attorney that way is going to file for a retrial. A few of us have swore off burnt spoons this way. We have a couple of new kids this way that we need to sit and rap about. We have asked that you fellas trust our judgment on new kids this way, as we trust your judgment that way. It's just that sending names to the mail only puts the bottles on top of folks they need not be. Tommy and I will stand accountable for things this way, and all will stay in top order. I understand that Arizona is sending about 10 fellas this way that are claiming brand. Has anyone been able to get to the bottom of the story on that trip in Arizona? I've got a homeboy that way now, and I'm attempting to find out how all that came about out that way. If I end up going to trial down in Atlanta, and it does look like I will be shortly, do you want me to call you? I called Baby out to my last trial at Leavenworth. What I'd like to do is call you, someone from the Bay, and someone from Palm Hall. I was thinking along the lines of you, Buff, and Rick. We do need to just sit and rap a spell. Let me know your thoughts on that. Marion seems to be becoming home base for the M and us. About 10 of them out this way. What's the story on things between them and us? I myself hope with all my heart things can be worked out with respect to all, as only the bottles can gain any other way. Keep us posted. Well, I'll hush my mouth for now and fold this on up. My love to kin and friends." End of quote. An assault trial that I was not familiar with was also mentioned in the letter. However, after some research, I found the pertinent information. In 1978, Terrible Tom Silverstein started serving a 15-year sentence for bank robbery in the United States Penitentiary at Leavenworth. In February 1979, Leavenworth inmate Danny Atwell was murdered, and Silverstein, Edward Snail Hale, and Preacher McAvoy were charged with the crime. Snail and Preacher's charges were dropped to accessory, and they pled guilty. On January 14, 1980, Silverstein's murder trial began in the U.S. District Court in Topeka, Kansas. Before the beginning of the trial, Silverstein subpoenaed Barry, who was now housed in Marion's control unit, and another unidentified brand member. Barry and the other member arrived at Leavenworth on January 1, 1980. They were being escorted to Leavenworth's control unit when the unidentified AB member kicked one of the escorting guards in the knee, and Barry attacked another guard, breaking his glasses and knocking out one of the guard's teeth. Barry represented himself and achieved a hung jury on the assault charge. His presence didn't help Silverstein with his murder trial. Silverstein was convicted of killing Atwell. Later, this conviction was overturned on appeal, but by that time, Tommy had committed another murder and would never again see the streets. A future episode will discuss Terrible Tom's criminal career. Getting back to the Marsoff murder fallout, during the trial, Barry went pro per and defended himself. This is how he was described. The long-haired, mustachioed, convicted robber lifted weights, and his muscles rippled under tattoos that covered his upper torso, government officials said. Weissmacht, white power, was tattooed across his chest. Other tattoos included a death specter that shared space on his back with several sexual depictions, according to pictures taken of him before the trial. The letters AB were prominently etched into his forearm. AB stood for the Aryan Brotherhood. A government witness testified that members of the Aryan Brotherhood will kill for each other on request, or to increase their status, or to gain power. U.S. Attorney Richard Hendricks portrayed Barry as a cunning, calculating killer who has conducted a cunning and calculated defense. Multiple times during the trial, the judge complimented Barry on his knowledge of the law. The U.S. Attorney even acknowledged Barry's performance by stating, "He's doing a better job than some lawyers I have gone up against." But another government official hit it on the head when he stated, "He's smart. That's what makes him dangerous." However, no matter how impressive Barry's effort was, he couldn't beat it. He was convicted of the murder of Marsoff on November 13, 1981, and was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences on December 14, 1981. The life sentences were ordered to run consecutively to the 20-year sentence the Baron was serving for the Fresno bank robbery. His crime partner in the murder of Marsoff, Danny Holliday, who turned state's evidence and pled to a lesser charge, was convicted on December 18, 1980, of conspiracy to commit armed robbery on a government reservation. On December 21, 1981, Holliday was sentenced to 3 years. We'll have to end it for here now, as this episode is already very lengthy. We will pick this up in another video, but for now, good night and God bless you.